strike. Also on Wednesday, lecturers in the country's colleges of education also threatened to begin their own strike to protest the federal government's non-implementation of their agreements it reached with them. And now let's get into the conversation in a bit.
Eagles 102.3.
Eagles 102.3 makes good radio.
All right, get into the conversation this morning. We're talking about the FCT. Starting with the FCT elections. Well, the FCT area council elections went down on Saturday. By this time last week, we were talking about how Nigerians needed to go out to vote and be a part of the process to elect those who represent them at the, local area council levels, or the council levels, the government that is said to be closest to the people. But apparently, a lot of Nigerians and Abuja people didn't heed that advice. We'll be talking this morning with Barrister Jude Ezobi, a legal practitioner, as you know it. Thank you so much for joining us, Barrister Ezobi.
Thank you so much for having me. Good morning.
It's good to have you here. How's it been for you? Have you been able to move around with the fuel scarcity?
Well, it's been quite difficult, really. It's something that hit us without notice per se. But fuel scarcity is something that has been with us Nigerians for quite some time. So one way or the other, we're able to go about it. But however, it has been quite unpleasant, really.
I think that it's a good place to start the conversation because Abuja is one of the cities that was hit by the fuel scarcity. Nigerians having to, Abuja people having to buy fuel at, exorbitant prices and having to stay in queues or, for hours, even days, just to get fuel. Now, the city is one that is becoming really populated by the day. Every day, more and more people trip into the city. I've had people move, I know at least 5 people in the last couple of months who have moved from Lagos to Abuja. I can't count how many people I know have moved from Kaduna, to Abuja. And so it seems like we have the infrastructural plan for Abuja seems not to be able to accommodate the number of people who may be moving into the city in the next couple of years. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I quite agree with you on that, and that's where we call on the authorities, to look into opening up, the satellite towns, really, and ensuring, besides that, one of the major challenges the FCT or Abuja in particular has is transportation. If the satellite towns are opened up and there is a sustainable means of transportation, people will freely and readily stay at Babalada or any of all the, even as far as Wali and the rest of it, and then find their way via the transportation systems provided by the authorities into town for those of them that walk into town. But what you find out today is that everyone is on the road with their vehicles. So that's one of the major challenges, in terms of making it seem as if Abuja or the infrastructure has provided, it seems to be a bit shaky at the moment.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned earlier that the reason we have most people in the queues and because everybody has to move around with their cars. Abuja is a city where people tell you, look, if you're moving to Abuja, you have to have a car. You need your car to be able to move around. But then that shouldn't be the issue, because if we had a good transport system working, I recall that Abuja used to have the BRT and all of that. In this time, even at this point where the fuel is scarce, people wouldn't have issues moving around. Which is why some people have called in the past few days, look, let's have the public transport system fixed in the city. If we had these buses moving, people wouldn't have to queue for hours. People wouldn't have to waste their money. If we said we want to remove fuel subsidy, for instance, that's one of the areas we need to be looking at. In advanced climes, people talk about, rail transport system. Abuja is a mega city. We can't live in we can't say Abuja is a mega city when we don't have, even what do you call them, a train or metro in the city.
Very, very true. I assume some people might say, okay, well, at this point, that may be wishful thinking. Let's even, yes, ideally we should have, as Abuja being the number one most populous Nigeria being the most populous black city in the world, and Abuja being its capital. It should be one of the wonders of the world. It should be. Well, it's unfortunate that we look at Dubai, and it seems to be, the dream come true. These things are not actually far-fetched. So talking about the surface, which ideally we should have the surface and even the underground rail system. I believe is part of the master plan, but for whatever reasons we're not there. And like I said, it may seem as wishful thinking, but then there are still deliverables, there are still infrastructures, there are still transport systems that could be put in place, and that we could manage for probably about 10-15 years, depending when, probably a government that has that type of vision or capacity comes in place to ensure that those other sustainable and future rail systems or future transportation systems are put in place. You talked about the BRT, those big buses. If you're heading towards Kubwa or Warimpa on the express, you see there's a yard. You see hundreds of them just parked there. So if those ones cannot be repaired, I believe resources are there. You could go into partnership with these manufacturers of buses or large vehicles, and they'll deliver those vehicles in their number for the benefits. In all of this, really, the administration or the government of the day, they need to look inwards. Whatever they do should be for the benefits of the people, because if your people are stranded and suffering, you've actually failed on your primary responsibility. So now, taking us back to just had concluded elections, so those officers or chairmen that have come into place, their activities should center on the people. What are looking at things in a city like FCT on the surface? What are the things what are the immediate deliverables, that could mitigate and reduce the sufferings of the people whom you are meant to administer? And one of those, like, as we are discussing now, is the transportation system. You have all kinds of recreative vehicles. It's as if from all parts of Nigeria and sub-Saharan Africa, they bring in all the abandoned vehicles into the FCT now. And that brings us to the challenge of security as well, because at the end of the day, how people suffer. The local authorities are just interested in collecting their daily ticket money from these drivers, and they allow them to be on our roads without proper investigation or approvals to ensure that, for instance, the issue of one chance. Many of our people, our brothers and sisters and family members, unfortunately find themselves in the hands of all these one chance people. And at the end of the day, what happens? You can't track, you can't trace. So it's quite an unfortunate issue.
Well, speaking of surviving FCT, what do you call it now? Rent and accommodation is one of the biggest issues. If you have to live in the city, you have to pay as much as, sometimes millions, running into millions. And recently, the National Assembly proposed a bill to have, people pay rent monthly. Are you in support of that drive?
Well, that in itself, really, based on our present realities, it's a difficult fry. I say that because the idea may be to copy a structure, a system that's worked in some other clime abroad or in America. But the reality is that those systems or those other countries like in America or in Europe, their capacity in terms of their remuneration, is based on pay as you work, or pay as you work, essentially. They earn their living by the hour. But we here in Nigeria in particular, we earn our living or remuneration for work done at the end of the month. So how do you relate that? So if you put such a system in place, it then means that more than 80% of people will default, because their legitimate expectation, legitimate earnings for work they do or have done comes at the end of the month. And that's why the rental system is structured annually. Really.
Now let's talk about the elections. We can talk about Abuja, not talk about the elections that went down on Saturday. The turnout was quite frustrating. I mean, a lot of Nigerians, people like me, expected people to troop out en masse to go vote, to choose those that would represent them at the area council level. we saw a situation where, especially in AMAC, people did not turn out. People did not show up for the elections. And even when they did, they couldn't even wait for, accreditation. Some of them had to leave because, well, it seemed like this is not our business. How do we get to the point where we can make people, get people really involved in the process, especially in the FCT?
Yes, in a place like the FCT, the major challenge is that there's clearly a total disconnect from the authorities at every level, and I would say the residents of FCT, because and that is clearly what has brought about this. I want to call it disenfranchisement, because you find out that many of the people you meet along the line, be it family members or relations or in co-workers in the office, you realize that many of them do not even know any of the candidates that vied or participated in the just concluded FCT elections. So there's an actual need to bridge that gap between the authorities, the municipal authorities, the authorities at every level, and the residents. It's essentially most of the people whom work within the FCT, also reside within the FCT, except those that maybe go towards Kefi or Suleja at the end of the day. But essentially, you could say about 85% of those people who work in the FCT reside in the FCT. Now, we having said that, we realized that this disconnect in any event must be breached. And for instance, for myself, for the past about 10 years now, I've been working on ensuring I've been working on developing and ensuring that every person who lives within the FCT, in particular at the neighborhood or estates level, are well informed and participate in the activities or happenings around the FCT. Because if you don't bridge that disconnect, if you don't relate well, or not necessarily in terms of just holding the authorities accountable, but also advising and supporting them. It's imperative for us not just to point fingers, but at the end of the day, we as residents within the FCT, what efforts are we doing, or what have we done on our part to ensure that the services we require are provided. So if we're able to bridge this gap and have a structure in place whereby information is rightly transmitted to the people, the locals in Abuja as of today, are the residents, are the neighbors, are the people that reside in the estates. If we're able to communicate, to have a structure to communicate with them directly, I'm sure some of these challenges will be a thing of the past. And that is why we, as of today, we set up a forum which is known as the Neighborhood Estates and Residents of Abuja Forum, which is basically an amalgamation of all the estates, residents and neighborhoods of Abuja. Essentially every neighborhood should have an association, really, and we encourage people to be part of this association, because things, whatever the issues may be in terms of security, in terms of power, whatever it is, if you have a meeting point, some of those issues will be well taken care of. So now this association, which is known as NERAF, was set up to be an amalgamation of all those other associations, so that we can escalate issues and advise the community that serves us, such as the municipal authority or the authorities at whatever level, with the security agencies, and advise them on issues as they affect us and how best we think they can serve us better.
All right, the conversation continues. This is your radio experience. You can count on your own to Eagles Outlook. We'll be talking more. Stay with us.
Eagles 102.3 Abuja. Eagles Morning Rise. Eagles Morning Rise with
9:25 is the time. You're on to Eagles Outlook on your radio experience. You can count on Eagles 102.3. This morning we're talking surviving FCT. And, our guest is Barrister Jude Izobi. He's joining us here talking about the FCT. And we're moving now, looking at the FCT area council elections and how, the area councils can improve the lives and of the people, as well as support how the people can support the area councils, especially the area council leadership. Join us in the conversation. Call 09073530044 and 09087668888. Now, one of the reasons some people say a lot of people could not vote at the last area council elections because, well, most of them, the PVCs were registered to polling units outside of the FCT. Some people have, just reside here. I believe when it's time for elections, I'll travel back to my state or to my village to go and vote. And as such, they were unable to vote at the area council elections. Was that? Do you see that as one of the reasons that affected one of the reasons or the things that affected the outcome or the turnout at the FCT elections?
Well, you can say somewhat really, but for those that want eminent change, for those that want eminent results, there's really no room for excuse.
Do you think NX should provide a situation where people can vote anywhere in Nigeria, especially before we even start to talk about diaspora elections, where a Nigerian can vote from any part of Nigeria so long as they have their PVCs?
Yes, barring any constitutional provisions, it should be, because we should as a nation, or as well, the FCT is the capital, not necessarily a state, but a state in that regard. Yes, we should move with the times. In some major parts of the world, so long as you're confirmed that you are a resident of a particular place, you're able to vote electronically, no matter your location. In fact, your inability to vote is considered some type of disenfranchisement, which then becomes unconstitutional. Yes. So in any event, it's an idea that is well and very well welcomed. One being able to participate in any electioneering process regardless of his or her location. It's something that is ideal, and that should happen, really.
All right. Now let's talk about the fact that you mentioned security earlier, and we're seeing increasing insecurity in the FCT. People are in their homes, and somebody attacks them, takes their property, or even abducts them. What do you think the area councils can do to ensure that these things stop? Because it's at their level. Well,
truly, it is at their level, and if the environment they govern is unsecured, it's a major loss for them in terms of everything, in terms of revenues, in terms of ensuring that their primary responsibility is protection of lives and property. So as such, in any event, it behoves on them to ensure that the security agencies, in particular as the police, all the divisional police stations within the FCT, do not lack any form of equipment or lack any form of support. And also ensuring because they can claim that it can be an onerous responsibility because as a local authority they have responsibilities at various levels, and security is one of them. They still have to bother with education and all that. But security is key, because if security is not properly managed, every other thing collapses, as we could see in various parts of the country that are suffering or having major security challenges. So as such, they should provide and support the security agencies, in particular the police, and also look out for platforms and associations that are well structured, so that, because security is not just the business of one man, security is a collective responsibility. So the authorities should also reach out to well-meaning organizations, particularly the neighborhood and estate residents associations within the FCT, to see how they can support the activities of the police. Now, from experience, most of the police stations within the FCT lack support. In particular, people don't go to the police except there is a crime or there something has happened and all that. It should not be so. The police and such as the fire service, these are people that provide essential services to you. So from time to time, they should be visited by the residents of the FCT to see how they can support. Their vehicles could be bad. They might need even things as little as secretarial support and office equipment. People go to the police and say they've asked them to pay for
papers to to write their statements.
Yes, but you see, at times you cannot blame those institutions because they themselves as officers provide some of those things by themselves. There's some type of shortage. Well, we're all in Nigeria, and it's unfortunate. We're all complaining that things are not the way they should be. But then the change cannot come except we all participate. So that's my point. Really.
Absolutely. The change cannot come unless we all participate. Stay with us. The conversation continues.
Eagles 102.3 Abuja.
Hello there. Welcome to the month of love. We at Hantech Markets will be giving you another opportunity to feel the love season with loads of cash. Let's get started already. Join us at the Hantech Markets Digital Wealth Creation on Saturday, 19th February 2022 at 10 a.m. as we will hold you by your hands and teach you step by step on how to profit from the global financial markets. Venue, Barcelona Hotel, 23 Blantari Crescent, Wosi 2, Abuja. To attend, SMS name and location to 0805-690-5612. That is 0805-690-5612. We have bigger star rewards this season. 4 of our esteemed attendees will be going home with $250 initial startup capital, free internet data for participants for the early birds, branded Handek t-shirts with writing materials and pens. Once again, send SMS name and location to 0805-690-5612 to attend. Handek Markets, trust through transparency.
I can tell he's been lying and pretending that he's faithful and he loves you.
Hanging out with friends is such a hobby, but chilling with your girlfriends? Such a bolster. We talk about love, family, relationship, the shady, hilarious, fun, juicy, messy gossip in town. And the gentlemen aren't off the table. Girlfriends with Olije, Mondays and Fridays at 1 p.m. Exclusive to Eagles 102.3 FM, Abuja.
Eagles Morning Rise. Eagles Morning Rise with
We appreciate you staying with us. The conversation continues. This is Eagles Outlook on your radio experience. You can count on Eagles 102.3. Joining now, let's bring you into the conversation. Call 09073530044 and 09087668888. We're talking surviving FCT. You two can be a part of it now. Hello, good morning.
Hi, please, good morning.
Good morning, Paul. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much. Good morning to Barrister.
Good morning.
Yeah, I think Barrister, you have spoken well. So I just picked, you just draw my interest to the association you talked about, the new neighborhood association you are talking about.
Yes, please.
And I'm so interested in that kind of association because I found out that most of development and some other things comes through those kind of associations. Why I say this because in my area we have a rate in which most times we even start ourselves to do our roads, find transformer, NEPA for everything. So I don't know, does the administration, like the local government administration, do they recognize this association you're talking about? By extension, the FCT administration to recognized by them. And then if it does, how can other residents, like in an area, how can they join? Are there criteria for them to join? That's the second question. And then my last general comment on this election and what happened during the election, I want to say by going around that day, I've realized that so many people that I interacted with, they feel disappointed with what the local government administration has been able to do, that are doing, that they are not doing enough for them to feel their impact, that for election they can come out and vote the same people. Secondly, a lot of mixed up, and there was enough voter education. People did not really know what was happening, don't know their polling units, the way they are supposed to vote. There were a lot of exchanges. They moved from polling units, from where they used to be to the other side without the voters knowing. So a lot of mixed up in that kind of thing. And I feel so disappointed with the administration, especially I live under Ahmad. I've never felt their impact for one bit. And I see Ahmad as one of the local government that get more revenue. Their IGR is big enough to do a lot of things, but we don't feel their impact. We do everything, and yet they don't even argument for one thing. Slow roads they will do, they won't do. A lot of things. So there's a big disconnect. Even though most of the residents we know what we are doing, but the government, you don't feel their impact.
Thank you so much.
So a lot of people need to do a lot. Thank you very much.
Appreciate you calling in. Now, you want to respond to Paul's questions?
Yes, please. Thank you, Paul. Your questions are apt, really. You had talked about recognition of the association NERAF. Essentially, our constitution guarantees freedom of association, but however, we're really in sync, and the authorities, in particular, the security agencies, know about our activities, and you talked about how to join. Essentially, it is our belief, first and foremost, that every person who wants to be part of us should the first port of call is participating in your local estate or resident or neighborhood association. So now it is the chairman or an executive or someone who has been elected from that local association that becomes part of NERAF, because NERAF is the umbrella association of all the neighborhood and resident or estate associations within the FCT. Now, you talked about elections, that it seemed that many people did not participate, or in terms of people did not really know what to do, in terms of they had complications in terms of locating their polling units and all that. This is also one of the essence of putting together NERAF, because we realize that one of the major challenges in a city like FCT is communication. But for instance, now as we have NERAF, if these authorities communicate to us, because the residents and at the end of the day, everybody who works in a city center, works in FCT, goes home to an estate, goes home to a residents association, or goes home to a neighborhood association. So since we're an amalgamation of all these neighborhood or residents or estate associations, any information that we receive and we place it on our platforms, and the chairman grab those informations, dissemination of information is freely done. You also mentioned that the impact of the
area council chairman,
area council chairman,
and councillors,
have not been felt, really, and that's the essence of having the elections. If you don't feel the impact of the people whom have represented you, you take up your PVCs and go and ensure that they don't come back, and ensure that people whom protect your interests are elected into offices. So that is why it's important for people to participate, in the activities that borders their environment, because those of your challenges can collectively be put together, and then the appropriate portals to channel them to.
One thing I think is, one problem I see is the fact that people believe that they're just two parties that they can vote for, and once these two parties do not field candidates that they're comfortable with, then every other person can go. They could just sit back at home and not vote. But that's not the truth. I mean, we have several other parties in the country. I mean, at the FCT area council elections, I think about 14 political parties contested. So if one party does not, the two, as we call them, prominent parties, do not give you the option that you like, then how about you go to the other parties and choose the person? But then let's talk about local councils and what do you call it now, revenue generation. A lot of area councils believe that, or the chairman or local government council, in fact, in general in Nigeria, local governments believe that what they should do is collect taxes from bus drivers, collect taxes from shops and all. They're not thinking about investments and supporting investments in their local areas. If, for instance, AMAC decides to pull investors from other countries, invest here. We provide you land or space to invest. They're going to be employing people who live in AMAC.
Very true.
They're going to be paying taxes in AMAC, and that's going to show up their revenue. What do you think about local governments having ideas, revenue generating ideas that could support the economy of their areas?
Yes, it all really boils down to ensuring that the right set of people take up elective positions. Some of these great ideas you've talked about. Essentially, what is even the responsibility of a local authority? For instance, AMAC and the rest, they are meant to be the government that is closest to the people. So outside chasing the people and business about just to get or milk them of their revenue to generate revenue, they should act, like you mentioned, they should actually develop ideas, policies and plans to see how they can attract investors. Even that aside from foreign investors, there are even investors that we have local investors. There are people who have capacity, at various levels that could come in and to ensure that the vision and ideals of the local authority, is set in motion. Talk less of the people that the fund getting support from abroad. I think it was this morning or late last night, I read that there's this startup, that got about $4 million from foreign investors. So you have so many startups around you. Even apart from the startups, you have the existing businesses. So part of the major responsibility of the municipal authority should be, how can we support our businessmen and women? How can we support the existing businesses around us? Because if the businesses are doing well, it means they're able to pay salaries, our people are happier, and even them in terms of collecting and generating revenue, they can cheerfully and happily go to them and request for those statutory revenues that should come from the businesses. But if you're not doing all this, and you're chasing people about, it might be a tall ladder.
Paul mentioned something, and it got my interest, that they're constructing roads for themselves, buying transformers and all. And these, basically in roads, for instance, we have the Trunk A, Trunk B, and Trunk C roads. The Trunk C roads are supposed to be, local governments or area councils as we have them, it's supposed to be their responsibility to take care of. How can people draw the attention of their area council authority to certain, important roads or infrastructural needs, and have them really go? Because for AMAC, for instance, in 2021, I think the budget for AMAC was about 10 billion naira. Some people can ask him, where did all these monies go to? Okay,
well, you see, it's quite unfortunate that in our nation's history we've not gotten to the point whereby, and I believe we'll get there, we've not gotten to the point whereby that some of our authorities, in particular, for instance, the local authority, is able to freely take up these responsibilities. But in some instances, and that is one of the reasons, that's one of the gaps that NERAF has come to breach. We realize in some instances that when you engage the authorities, and keep at it, somehow it might not take so much time, but somehow they wake up to responsibilities and take up those responsibilities. For instance, you actually mentioned people. It's quite a painful thing to see that there are districts you go to and you see that the level of development there is overwhelming, but then there's no access. Ideally, when the government sees that there are people who are partners in progress who have brought actual development to their environment, they should come in to say, okay, what role do we play? How do we go about this? How do we go about that? But then, in being fair to some of these authorities, most times they'll tell you that there are issues of funding. How do they go about the fund? But that's where thinking outside the box and ensuring that people, men and women of vision, take up authority, men and women who have courage because development is not a one-man's business, and it's not also the business of just the government. So the government can form various types of partnerships and understandings with people, would-be investors, who would come and say, okay, well, we can do XYZ kilometer of road, and then in turn, what we get is, there are all kinds of holidays, tax holidays or tax exemption. So those are the kind of things that happen in other climes. And I think probably in Lagos or so, around the ports. I know that there's a company who are taken up to do the roads around the ports. And in turn, what they get back is, some type of incentive or discount from the government in terms of taxes and every other thing that ideally should come. There are obligations to the people or to the government.
Join the conversation. Call 09073530044 and 09087668888. Send a message to 09097054450. Don't forget, you can watch us live on YouTube at Eagles FM Abuja, YouTube and Facebook at Eagles FM Abuja. Now, let's quickly talk about the FCDA and, do you think that there seems to be a bit of, confusion as to who does what? We live in the FCT, and people say the governor of the FCT is the president through his minister, and for that reason, there seems to be people who especially the area council levels, worrying, wait, let's not overstep our bounds. Let's not do more than is expected of us, And sometimes they leave certain responsibilities to the FCDA rather than, actually take up some of these responsibilities. Do you think we need to draw, we need to have clear-cut responsibilities set out for people to know their jurisdictions?
I think that the enabling laws have clearly done that, So anybody who is saying they don't know what their responsibility is just being quite lazy, Everyone have their job or responsibilities cut out for them. In particular, the elected officers, and the law has spelled out everyone's jurisdiction. The Federal Capital Development Authority also and all its agencies within it have their duties and responsibilities cut out. Where some of us feel and believe where the challenge is, is people living up to their responsibility and not giving any form of excuse, Like I mentioned, most times what they say the issue is funding, but there are different types of mechanisms or structures you can put in place to attract the desired type of funding to ensure, because at the end of the day, all the activities, all the responsibilities, or whatever, or what have you, must be people-centered, So ensuring if you have the people at heart, discharging that responsibilities which you have said on oath, or whether by virtue of your appointments you've said you would discharge, shouldn't be an issue. Administration is one of the easiest thing. If you are focused, if you have a vision, you must have a vision and a plan. Many of those have succeeded in the past, in particular in FCT, they had a plan regardless of the challenges. So once you have a plan and you have a vision and you have your God with you, actualizing or putting smiles on faces of people won't be an issue, really.
Mr. Jude Izubi, thank you so much for talking with us this morning. We appreciate your time and your thoughts on the program. Thank you very much for coming through.
Thank you for having me.
All right, and this is where we'd have to drop the anchors this morning. Thank you to everyone who had been a part of it. If you sat back to listening to enjoy the conversation, thank you so much for being there. And the conversation continues on our socials at Eagles FM Abuja. Go there, drop a line, and we hope to, respond to that. My name is Ihanacho Prince. Keep it with us on your radio experience. You can count on. It's Adult Friday. Go out, have fun, be the best that you can be as well. Eagles on Eagles FM. Olija takes over shortly. 102.3 Extra. Before then, business news. Keep it locked here.